Jack Ryland didn't like surprises. Not after 10 years drifting from war zone to war zone, skimming the edges of galactic conflict, and barely scraping by as a scavenger on backwater planets. He liked his quiet, the wind humming to the metal bones of his outpost and the predictable clank of his tools. But the sky that evening had other plans. The explosion bloomed across the horizon in a silent flare of violet and gold. Jack froze mid-step, his boots crunching gravel outside the dome-shaped shelter he called home. The light vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a faint trail of smoke curling down into the jungle beyond the ridge. Hell, he muttered, shouldering his pack. Curiosity was a bad habit, but old soldiers like him didn't ignore crashes. Too many had turned into regrets when left unchecked. He descended into the forest with practiced silence, pulse steady, senses sharp. The trees here were wide-trunked and glossy, leaves whispering in alien tongues. Nothing stirred. That bothered him more than if something had. The wreck wasn't much of one. Just a small craft, sleek, almost organic in design, half buried in a steaming crater. Its hull shimmered with iridescent runes that flickered as though trying to fade from existence. Whatever technology powered it, it wasn't from any faction Jack recognized. He crouched, hand resting near the pistol at his hip, and scanned the area. A sound, faint, pained. He circled behind the craft and found it. The creature was slumped against a rock, its silvery fur matted with blood. It was no more than 2 feet tall, shaped like a feline, but with oversized eyes that shimmered with an unsettling intelligence. Its chest rose and fell shallowly. When it saw him, it didn't snarl or flee. It whimpered, a tiny paw raised in weak defiance or plea. Jack hesitated. He should walk away. He'd seen creatures like this sold off in markets, dissected in labs, used as bait or barter for favor. Helping it meant trouble, almost certainly. Damn it, he sighed, pulling a blanket from his pack. The creature flinched as he approached, but didn't resist as Jack bundled it up and carried it back up the ridge. It was lighter than it looked, its bones fragile under fur and warmth. It didn't speak, but its violet eyes never left him. Back at the outpost, Jack cleared his workbench and set to cleaning its wounds. The creature didn't struggle, only stared. Silent, alert, he spoke to it like he would a wounded dog, not expecting it to understand, but somehow feeling it did. Who crashes in royal airspace? He asked aloud. Doesn't take much to guess you're not supposed to be here. The creature blinked once, deliberately. Jack patched the gash along its side, checked for broken bones. The injuries weren't life-threatening, not if treated, but he'd have to ration his meds now. The damn thing was already more expensive than most jobs. As night fell, he made a place for it near the warm exhaust vent. It curled into the blanket, eyes still open, but calmer now. He poured himself a drink and watched it from the other side of the room. Guess you're my guest of the night. The silence stretched, peaceful, until the scanners lit up. He leaned forward. Incoming vessels, the console chirped. Unregistered, multiple signatures. Of course, Jack muttered. He peered through the scope mounted on the dome's edge. Sleek, jet-black ships with wing-like sails hovered just above the tree line. They weren't searching discreetly. They wanted to be seen. He counted 6 before they vanished into the night clouds again. He looked back at the creature. It was awake now, trembling, eyes wide with recognition and fear. Jack paced. He wasn't stupid. The thing in his outpost was important. Royalty? Military asset? Sacred icon? He didn't know. What he did know was that those ships were looking for it, and they didn't intend to ask nicely. You brought a lot of heat, he muttered. The creature gave a soft chirp, sad, almost apologetic. Jack stared at it. You understand me, don't you? It blinked. He exhaled slowly. Yeah, thought so. For a moment, the years fell away. He remembered crouching behind burning vehicles, holding dying comrades, whispering words to calm them as explosions thundered nearby. This creature's fear mirrored that look. Vulnerability. Trust. He rubbed his face. This is insane. But when he moved to shut down the scanner feed, the creature reached a paw toward him. Just once. A silent thank you. The stars outside shimmered. Jack didn't sleep that night. Morning brought rain and worse news. The forest was crawling with armored patrols, tall, green-skinned humanoids with weapons that hissed in the air and scorched the soil where they walked. Jack watched in the shadows as one of them examined the crater site, sniffing the air like a predator. They were closing in, fast. By noon, they'd reach his outpost. Jack stood in the center of the room, gear packed, mind racing. He should run. But as the creature hobbled toward him and leaned gently against his leg, something inside him changed. He remembered why he left the wars behind. Not because he'd grown weak, but because he'd grown tired of not choosing what to fight for. Now he had a choice. Jack knelt, touched the creature's head. All right, little one. I don't know what you are or why they want you, but I'm not handing you over. The creature nuzzled his hand, purring softly. Jack smiled grimly. Guess that means we got a hell of a journey ahead. Outside, the trees shivered. The hunters were close. He armed the outpost perimeter, stashed supplies, and lifted the creature into the padded bag slung across his chest. As he slipped into the jungle's shadows, he didn't look back. The chase had begun. And unknown to Jack, his act of kindness had already changed the fate of a distant kingdom and captured the heart of a watching princess. Rain speckled the leaves above, thin threads of silver slicing through the humid canopy. Jack moved with the instinct of someone who had lived too long on the run, avoiding drones that buzzed like angry insects through the trees. The creature nestled against his chest didn't stir. It had grown weak again, and he felt every fragile breath vibrate through the fabric of his jacket. Each hour they spent evading search parties drained their options. He needed shelter, answers, a plan. A rustle ahead snapped his attention. He crouched low, pressing a hand against the creature's small head to steady it. The sound grew louder, boots, many of them, moving in unison, not the plodding, heavy steps of drones. These were precise. Disciplined. He slid behind a fallen tree and pulled a lens from his belt. Through the magnified view, he saw a unit of elite soldiers in obsidian armor moving through the underbrush, formation tight. At their center strode someone distinctly different. She moved like she commanded the ground beneath her, tall and elegant, with skin the color of moonlight and hair like a cascade of silver flame. The woman wore a long, flowing robe adorned with markings Jack didn't recognize, but instinctively respected. Her eyes scanned the forest with calm intensity, a faint shimmer of energy pulsing from a gem embedded in her forehead. Whatever this operation was, she wasn't just a soldier. She was the one in charge. Jack's gut tightened. Then, suddenly, she turned directly toward where he crouched. Her gaze sharpened. "Come out," she called, her voice smooth and cold. "You are not native to this world." Jack didn't move. Silence followed. Then the soldiers raised their weapons. He had seconds. He stood slowly, hands visible, one hovering near his sidearm. "All right," he said, voice steady. "Let's not make this messy." Her eyes narrowed as she stepped forward. The soldiers held their positions, though they clearly itched to fire. She studied him in silence, as though dissecting him with thought alone. "You are human," she said, with something like curiosity, not contempt. "Guilty," Jack replied. "Name's Jack Ryland. Scavenger. Mind telling me what your heavily armed crew is doing on a backwoods moon like this?" The princess, though he didn't yet know her title, didn't answer at first. Then she asked, "Have you seen a creature?" "Small, silver, quadruped. Injured." Jack kept his expression blank. "Lot of strange creatures in these woods. Haven't seen anything like that." She stepped closer. "Lying is unwise, especially when you do not know who you speak to." "You don't look like a bounty hunter," he said. "You don't smell like one either. I am Lasara of the House of Aurelia, first daughter of the Stellar Crown. This creature is of my blood, and if it dies, the balance of more than one empire may fall." Jack blinked. The words hit harder than he expected. "Your blood?" he asked. She lifted her chin. "It is not what you think. It is not a pet nor a beast. It is bonded to my family through sacred lineage. Its disappearance was an act of war." He hesitated. Lasara's eyes flicked downward. "You're carrying something." "Show me." Jack's jaw tightened. I don't know who you are, but where I come from, I don't hand over the helpless to people with guns. The tension coiled. Soldiers raised their weapons again. Lasara raised a single hand, and the forest stilled. You misunderstand. I mean the creature no harm. But I will not tolerate deception. Jack unzipped the bag slowly. The small, silver fur being peeked out, blinking sluggishly. A soft coo escaped its throat. Lasara inhaled sharply. Her expression, controlled until now, fractured. Something raw flashed across her face. Not anger. Relief. She knelt, not as a princess, but as someone deeply human. Mir, she whispered. The creature stirred weakly, eyes locked on hers. Jack could feel its trembling lessen. He stepped back. So it knows you. She didn't answer. She reached out slowly, brushing her fingers along the creature's fur. Its name is Mirialis. It was born during the eclipse, a sign of power and prophecy. Mir is sacred to my people and to me. Jack crossed his arms. So why was it alone and bleeding in the dirt? Lasara stood. There are factions within my court who fear Mir's potential. They tried to erase it. I failed to protect them. Jack looked at her, trying to reconcile the regal poise with the flash of guilt beneath her words. Mir survived because I found them, he said. No offense, princess, but your people don't seem to have done a great job so far. Lasara's gaze sharpened. And what do you expect, scavenger? A reward? A title? Jack laughed bitter. Lady, I don't want anything from you. I just don't like watching innocent things die. A silence settled between them, charged but not hostile. You risked your life, she said quietly, for something you didn't understand. Jack met her eyes. Yeah, that's usually where the good stuff starts. Lasara turned, issuing orders to her soldiers in a language Jack didn't recognize. They dispersed into formation, leaving the two of them standing alone. You've proven yourself more noble than many who wear crowns, she said at last. But you've also made yourself a target. The ones who try to destroy Mir will not stop now. Jack glanced at the trees. Let them come. I've been a target my whole life. Lasara studied him. Then perhaps you are exactly what we need. Before Jack could respond, a blast echoed through the forest. One of Lasara's scouts burst through the trees, armor scorched, shouting a warning. They've found us. Weapons raised. The air shimmered with tension. Jack dropped beside Lasara. Guess we're in this together now. She didn't argue. Instead, she handed him a slender blade, etched with glowing runes. He weighed it in his palm. I prefer guns. It prefers you, she said simply. They turned to face the storm as it thundered toward them. And somewhere in the brush, unseen eyes watched, hungry, calculating. The real hunt had begun. The first wave hit with the force of a thunderclap. Plasma bolts scorched the undergrowth as armored soldiers poured in the trees, their helmets faceless and gleaming. Jack fired instinctively, ducking behind a fallen trunk as a barrage tore overhead. Beside him, Lasara stood poised like a storm-given form, her rune blade humming with violet energy. She didn't flinch as a bolt sizzled past her head. Her eyes were locked on the enemy with calm precision. Mir stays behind us, she said, her voice sharp and clear. Protect at all costs. Jack nodded and turned back to fire. Way ahead of you, princess. The skirmish was unlike anything Jack had fought in his mercenary days. These weren't common troops. They moved in coordinated sweeps, anticipating tactics before he could commit to them. It was as if they were reading his moves. But Lasara was their counterweight. Her blade danced in luminous arcs, cutting through armor like silk, her motions elegant but lethal. The soldiers didn't dare rush her directly. When one tried, he vanished in a flash of light and a scream. Behind them, Mir crouched beneath a cluster of roots, eyes wide but unafraid. Jack kept a corner of his vision on the creature, heart pounding. They were outnumbered, and worse, being funneled. They're hurting us, Jack shouted, ducking into a gully. They want us to move east. Lasara landed beside him, her breath even despite the chaos. There's a clearing there. They're forcing us toward an extraction point. Jack narrowed his eyes. Extraction for who? She didn't answer. That silence said enough. They burst from the gully, feet slamming mud and moss, Mir scampering alongside with surprising speed. The forest thinned. Jack could see the edge of the clearing, and the shimmer of a ship lowering into place. Then he saw the figure standing in front of it. He was tall, cloaked in armor of dark chrome, his face concealed by a veil of black glass. But it wasn't the armor that unsettled Jack. It was the way the figure stood, utterly still, like time bowed around him. Lysara hissed a word in her native tongue. Jack didn't need a translation to feel the weight in it. "Friend of yours," he muttered. "That is Varkesh," she said. "High Executor, the one who orchestrated Mir's abduction." Varkesh raised a hand. The soldiers behind him stopped instantly. The silence was louder than the battle had been. Jack glanced around. "You planning to fight him?" "I must," she said. "But not yet." Varkesh's voice echoed, synthetic and hollow. "Return the creature, Lysara. Spare your people the shame of further rebellion." Mir stepped behind Lysara's leg. Trembling now, Jack took a step forward. "He's not yours." The visor turned toward him. "And you are—" Jack smiled grimly. "The man who dragged Mir out of the dirt you left him in." There was a pause. Then Varkesh lifted his hand again. "You've made your choice." A surge of energy burst from his palm. Jack dove, dragging Lysara down as a blast shredded the air above. The forest exploded in light and heat. Trees splintered. The shock wave flung Mir like a leaf in a storm. Jack barely caught the creature before it hit a rock, rolling to shield it with his body. Lysara rose, eyes burning with fury. She lifted her rim blade and launched forward, her form becoming a blur of color and flame. She struck Varkesh with a force that cracked the ground, but his armor absorbed the hit with barely a flicker. They clashed, energy against energy, blade against void steel. Jack watched, helpless for once, as the battle turned mythic. Every strike echoed like a drumbeat through the clearing. Varkesh fought without rage, calculated, precise. Lysara fought with purpose, each blow carrying years of betrayal, loss, and unspoken vows. Jack turned to Mir. The creature lay still, stunned, chest rising too slow. "No, no, no," he whispered, placing his ear to its chest. "Still alive." "Barely." He glanced back at the duel. Lysara faltered, one step too slow. Varkesh seized the opening, hurling her with a wave of force that sent her crashing into a tree. Jack stood, lips tight, heart hammering. He reached into his coat and pulled out the blade she'd given him. "It prefers you," she had said. He didn't know what that meant, but as he gripped it now, the blade pulsed, alive in his hands. Symbols along the hilt flared with light, and warmth spread through his arm. Not burning, not biting, just present. Varkesh turned toward him. "You are unworthy." Jack didn't answer. He charged. The world narrowed. The blade guided him. Where he should have stumbled, he danced. Where his foot should have slipped, it found purchase. Varkesh blocked his strike, but the force drove the executor back a step, a first. Jack pressed forward, not giving time to breathe. The blade blurred through arcs he didn't recognize but instinctively trusted. Varkesh countered, adapting fast. But Jack didn't need to win. He needed to delay. Behind them, Lysara rose again, blood trickling down her temple. Her eyes locked with Jack's. Understanding passed between them. She struck. The blast of light engulfed the clearing. When it cleared, Varkesh was gone, vanished in a rift of pulsing black energy, leaving behind scorched earth and silence. Jack staggered, panting, blade slipping from his fingers. It shimmered, then dulled, as if satisfied. Lysara limped over, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You held him." Jack gave a dry laugh. "You softened him up." She smiled just barely. Then her gaze dropped to Mir. They rushed to the creature, who blinked up at them weakly, then gave a soft chirp of recognition. "He's alive," Jack said, heart unclenching. Lysara nodded, visibly shaken. But Varkesh will return. Stronger. Jack met her eyes. "Then we finish this before he does." Lysara looked toward the sky, where her ship hovered just above the canopy. "There's a place where we can be safe. For now, but it will not last long." Jack stood, cradling Mir. Lead the way. As they ascended into the ship, Lasara paused at the ramp, her eyes scanning the broken forest below. You are not what I expected, she said. Jack glanced at her. Neither are you. The ramp sealed shut. And far below, in the shadowed jungle, a single black shard of Varkesh's armor pulsed with dim light, watching, waiting. The stars above the hidden sanctuary shimmered in a haze of refracted energy, cloaking the valley beneath in a blanket of false readings and perfect isolation. The ship settled onto the landing platform with barely a whisper. Inside, silence followed, the kind of silence that came only after a storm had passed, brief and deceptive. Jack stepped out first, Mir nestled in the crook of his arm. The creature had regained color and breath, though it still slept deeply, the toll of Varkesh's assault evident in every weak shiver. Lasara followed, her posture regal despite the dried blood at her temple and the bruises darkening her shoulder. The sanctuary had once been a retreat for her family, a place of meditation and strategic retreat hidden inside a ring of crystalline cliffs. The air smelled faintly of myrrh and static. Ancient alien architecture curled upward from the valley floor, delicate towers of bone-white stone etched with violet script that glowed faintly in the moonlight. All of it hummed with energy that Jack could feel under his skin. He'd never seen anything like it, and he'd seen a lot. I thought royalty preferred palaces, he said quietly. Lasara didn't look at him. This is older than any palace, older than my crown. The sanctuary responds only to those it deems worthy. Jack raised a brow. And you're one of them? She met his eyes. Not always. They moved deeper into the structure. The inner chamber was circular, smooth-walled, lit by orbs suspended in air. Jack laid Mir gently onto a platform that adjusted shape beneath the creature's body, cradling it with precision. A glowing field activated around it, and Jack felt a slight pull against the skin. Some kind of healing cocoon, he guessed. It looked safe. Safe enough, at least. He turned to Lasara. So what now? She didn't answer right away. She was watching Mir, her face unreadable. Eventually, she said, We cannot run again. Varkesh will track us through systems, across stars. His kind never forgets. Jack leaned against the wall. Then we hit him first. Lasara turned, surprised by the edge in his voice. He crossed his arms. I didn't nearly get atomized just to sit in a crystal cave waiting to die. I want to finish this. You said this creature, Mir, is sacred, that its survival matters beyond your planet. Then let's use that. Let's bring the fight to whoever sent Varkesh. Her expression softened slightly. You think like a soldier. I used to be, Jack said, before I got tired of fighting for people who didn't give a damn. He walked toward the chamber center, where a circular console had begun to glow beneath his steps. As he approached, it reacted, symbols rising into the air, spinning slowly. He hesitated. Lasara's breath caught. That's not supposed to respond to you. Jack looked back. Should I step away? No, she said. Touch it. He did. A pulse shot through the floor, harmless but potent. The holographic map expanded, showing systems Jack didn't recognize. Lines of influence, battlefronts, coded trails of war stretching across sectors he'd only heard of in mercenary whispers. At the map's heart was a symbol pulsing deep red. That's Varkesh's fleet, Lasara said, moving beside him. He commands one of the autonomous war clusters, an elite force permitted to act independently of the throne. Why? Because once we trusted him. Jack frowned. How do you beat someone you can't outrun, who has power, troops, and tech that can crack a planet's crust? Lasara stared at the map. We don't outmatch him, but we can outmaneuver him. She manipulated the hologram with a few flicks of her fingers. A different section of the galaxy enlarged, an arc-shaped cluster of abandoned relay stations and mining colonies. This belt, she said, was once the heart of communication between our worlds. It's now dormant. But if we can reactivate the relay here, she pointed, we can broadcast a message to the High Council. Bypass Varkesh's interference. If they see proof that Mir lives, that Varkesh attempted to destroy it, we can turn the court against him. Jack exhaled. That's a big if. It's our only option, she said. And if we fail? You won't get another chance. They share a quiet look. In that moment, the weight of what lay ahead settled on both of them. Not just the fight, but the cost of it. Jack had always fought for survival. But this was more. This was purpose. Then we go, he said. Tonight. But they didn't go that night. Mir began to convulse shortly after the plan was set. The sanctuary's healing systems triggered alarms. Low, mournful chimes that echoed through the crystal halls. Jack and Lasara rushed to the chamber to find the cocoon flickering. The creature's body arched in pain, its silver for pulsing with unnatural light. Lasara reached forward, hands trembling. "It's not physical," she said, eyes wide with horror. "It's the bond. Mir is sensing the instability in the lineage. If we don't stabilize it, it will die." Jack grabbed her arm. "Tell me what to do." I need to link with it," she said. "Merge consciousness temporarily. Share my own life force." "You'll die." "Only if I fail." She stepped into the cocoon. The barrier parted for her like mist. Jack watched powerless as Lasara pressed her hands against Mir's head and closed her eyes. The air thickened. Light burst on the floor, wrapping them both in coils of glowing energy. The air vibrated with a song Jack couldn't hear, but felt in his bones. Mir shuddered, then stilled. Lasara sagged forward, unconscious but breathing. The glow subsided. The chime stopped. Jack ran forward and caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was cold. Mir blinked up at him. Awake, alert, eyes filled with intelligence that hadn't been there before. "You did it," Jack said quietly, barely believing it. The creature looked at Lasara, then at Jack. Its tiny paw touched her forehead gently, and Jack swore he saw something pass between them, memory, energy, something ancient and deep. He carried her to the resting chamber. Mir curled beside her like a guardian. Hours passed. She didn't wake. Jack stayed beside her, sword in hand, eyes fixed on the entrance. He didn't sleep. When dawn cracked the sky with pale fire, Lasara stirred. Her voice was weak. "Is it done?" Jack smiled, exhausted. "You're here. Mir's alive. That's enough for me." She reached out, gripping his hand. "We leave at nightfall." He nodded. "Yeah." As they looked out over the valley, the sky shimmered once more. This time not from stars, but from the faint shape of a warship far above, cloaked and circling. The end had not yet come, but it was near.